Hey guys, welcome back to Prepping in Progress. I'm Kim,
I'm Steve.
and you're usually not with me on Mondays, but I wanted you to kind of come join me because today we're going to be talking about training up prepper children. And hopefully this will be an interesting talk. It was kind of sparked with by a conversation we had at the Johnson County Prepper Swap Meet. And so I can get all of that. But yeah, it was great conversations being had, and it really got me thinking. And I wanted to talk it out with y'all guys. And so, what are we talking about? Our kids. I wanted Steve to join along. So,
Hi.
hi. All right, guys. Let's get into it. Okay, as y'all can see, I've got my Bible out mainly because the conversation that was had kind of reminded me of a Bible verse. And I usually don't share my own personal beliefs on here very often, but it was such a good verse, and it can translate for more than just spirituality, though it is a really good spiritual verse, but it also has a lot to do with prepping, I think, and just how we train our children. And it's a common proverb from Proverbs 22:6, and it's train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And I thought that was such good advice that it's what got me really thinking about when we were in the conversation up there about training our children, or who is going to carry this along in the next generation. Are we doing it, and then once our kids are 18, they're just going to go off and never think about prepping ever again? But yeah, to say, and at the swap meet, I really, it stunned me really to see how many whole families were participating in the swap meet, and seeing mom, dad, kids, everybody getting together and really excited about what was going on. I know our kids really enjoyed themselves, even the camp out, even though we had some stuff go wrong. And you can probably throw out some anecdotes about the things that happened at it was the EMP camp out. So it was completely electronics free. And we got a lot of compliments on our kids, and it got me to thinking, because, and my mom, of course, I think my kids are great and exceptional, but also can be, I know how bad they can be as well. But we got compliments on things like they didn't complain, they were engaging in conversations, they were thinking critically about, y'all played a scenario game where different scenarios were kind of like that the card game Conflicted, and it was similar, but it was like you said, it was on steroids.
Yeah, you were given a base scenario. You were here. This has happened. You've headed out, and for whatever reason, you ended up in Clarksville, Arkansas. And this is why you had to stop here. What did you go through to get where you are? Instead of giving you a moral dilemma
Yeah.
to focus on, it turned into storytelling. But then what would be the hardest thing you'd have to face? What would be this? What would be this? And it was interesting to watch my kids, because my son got thrown a curveball. You get two wild cards after you've gone through your scenario and answered as to the best of your ability. And then you get the monkey wrenches thrown in, and you actually have to base on what you've already said. Oh, and they're random. And my son got gigged with, you got water out of a swimming pool, and it was a little brown, but you drank it anyway. You figured the chlorine would clean it up, and you went to bed. A day or so later, you're not feeling too well, and your hair, there are clumps of hair on your pillow. What do you do? And my son's sitting there, and he's going, And then he looks across at me. He says, "Dad," and he's mouthing this because he doesn't want it, too many people to know that something's wrong. "I know there's something medically wrong. I know what's going on, but I don't know the problem and I don't know how to fix it." I mean, it was similar, and I'm paraphrasing but that was the message I got. And I was like, afterwards. And so he finished the scenario, and then he looked at me and goes, "Okay, what?" And I said, "You got radiation poisoning. Your hair is falling out. You need iodine. Your thyroid gland is having issues." He went, "Oh." I knew it was medical, and I knew something was up. I went, "Yeah, you did." But he was thinking.
Yeah.
He knew where he
was
needed
trying to work
be.
it out, and yeah.
I mean, and he'd seen that episode of Jericho where the guy gets exposed, goes running in, and they make him guzzle a bunch of iodine.
Fun.
By the way, there's another use for iodine.
The conversation I was having led into a lack of common sense in a lot of young people these days, and they were so happy to see my kids showing off a very common sense knowledge, jumping in and helping, being critical thinkers in the story time. And just, I was really proud of them. Like I said, just getting compliments as a mom, any moms out there, any parents whatsoever, when people are complimenting you and your kids, you kind of take pride and take joy in that because you're like, I did that. I made that person, and I'm training them, kind of like the book said, is I'm training them up to be who they are, not their personality or anything like that. But I tell my kids, I get, from the time you're born, from this helpless little infant, I only got 18 years to turn you into a functioning adult in this world. It's not enough time with all the hormones and all the dramas and everything else that goes on, and a lot of competing messages out there, a lot of competition, and plus my own work schedules and everything else that goes into what I have to do just to keep food on the tables, keeping laundry going. And a lot of times we can kind of bounce into just a routine, and we forget that we are supposed to be training our children in the way that they should go. And if we think that prepping is a lifestyle and prepping is something that should be ingrained in them from a young age, not from a fear base, but as practical knowledge, as common sense of saying, yes, of course you need to put food back. We were asking our kids, what is your top thing that you like about prepping, and trying to be a positive influence in their life and not just something mom and dad forced them to do. And, so far, of course, my son's is, of course, guns, and he likes all things dealing with the guns, and so he likes that part of prepping. So my daughter likes food, of course, and so she likes cooking, and she likes having extra food, and not ever having to worry about, are we going to go hungry? She likes that aspect of it. And so I made them do like a top 3 list, and would you continue being preppers when you grow up? And they're like, Mom, maybe, I think so. And I was like, well, if something were to happen, would you at least come to Mom and Dad's house, please?
And send a monthly check to pay for the preps that we'll be putting aside for you.
And having those conversations, like I said, my oldest is 16, just a couple more years, and he's going to be out on his own. My daughter's 13, so we've got her for a few more years. And engaging your children and not being scared or feeling like you have to take the lead all the time. Get them to think as well. Ask them questions, give them scenarios, let them feel free to debate back and forth with you and to engage and see where their mindsets are going. I think it's so wonderful to sit back as a parent and watch their minds kind of go and them thinking through things. Today was my dad's birthday, and we went and saw him today, and everybody give a big shout out to Grandpa Pip, what do you want to call him? I'm not going to give my dad's name out.
The Grand Prepper.
Grand Prepper. I like that grand prepper. Because if it wasn't for him doing the exact same thing with all of his kids, my dad loved to, hey, this is what I think. What do you think? This is a situation. How would you handle that? He loved giving us scenarios, and we didn't have very much. We were, like I said, I've told before, we were growing up pretty poor, and we didn't have a lot to entertain us with. And so my dad would find entertainment with conversation and just sitting down and engaging with his kids and allowing us to debate with him. And he played devil's advocate, and even if he'd agree with us, he would still kind of argue with us and get us to defend our position and why we chose to say it that way and not something else. And it got us really thinking. And now he has 4 wonderfully successful children who have a great mindset. I mean, I'm not going to go into what all my siblings do, but wonderful critical thinkers with great common sense, hardworking people. And, I'll brag on my siblings. I adore my siblings. And I think a lot of that has to do with our dad really training us up to debate and to think outside of the box. But that goes into why we went into the prepping lifestyle, is because it made sense. It made sense to look at the world this way, not from a fear, but from a practical mindset. And it's one I want to instill in my children and continue that along, because I think that self-reliance and, that being open to ideas, but being able to defend your own and not being scared to converse with people, and common sense and critical thinking all go hand in hand. I think it's a great asset to being a prepper. And I think the kids would go on to continue that lifestyle even when they're out on their own, because we have shown them that it's nothing to be ashamed of. It is nothing to come out from a position of fear. Our kids are not, they know this isn't fear-based, that we don't keep our kids in that kind of scaremongery all the time. And that they see a lot of this stuff as fun, like I said, the camp out and things like that, and bug out bags and guns and all the fun stuff. It's a lifestyle, but it's not a lifestyle based on fear. It is a lifestyle based on practical, common sense knowledge that we've instilled into our kids. And I think that's when you're raising prepper children, you want to make sure you are staying away from, we're doing this because the world is going to end. We're doing this because we're scared of this, that, and the other, or what if this happens? And that's not how you want to come at it, because once they're out from underneath you, that fear is going to stop if it's not constantly being fed in. It's going to stop. They're going to have time to sit back and go, oh, I'm not scared anymore. I'm not around that all the time, so why should I prep? If it comes at it from this is practical, this is insurance, this is a way to help protect you, protect your family in case something happens. And it becomes part of a lifestyle that they're used to and that they've trained up to be in. You look like you've got thoughts going on in your head too.
Well, going on that way and building on it in a practical step, when you and I get going, you start, giving me, well, this is the general plan for the yard for the month. And I'm thinking you're giving me today's list, and I go out and hand mow the entire yard because the riding mower's, broken. I'm thinking the same thing. When you're doing that with your kids, part of the teaching them is teaching them how to analyze where they live. So they can look at it and go, an earthquake is not the main thing here. Oh, but wait, I'm living in Nebraska and it's snow and ice in the winter and the power out here. So they can analyze what they need to deal with, what they need to prep for, and go from there. Because they're going to lose the fear. I mean, if you're throwing EMP in the end of the world as we know it, our son and I had a conversation just today. We were talking about the prepping, and he said, "Well, I wouldn't prep for an EMP, but I might be prepared for a civil war."
He's thinking.
And I looked at him and I said, "Okay, I want to argue with you for a minute. He's like, okay, let's do this. And I said, my position, I'm prepping for an EMP. It's like, yeah, Dad, I know. I said, why? I said, what will happen if the lights go out? Grocery store. Well, people are going to be hungry for a little bit. I said, dude, more than a little bit. Stop and think about it. And I went into EMP would knock out the computers in the big rigs. The big rigs couldn't bring the food. Most people have 3 days worth of food. Most grocery stores have 3 days worth of food.
If you're lucky.
What happens? And he went, whoa. I said, yeah, food riots. That's a mini civil war, isn't it? He went, yeah. I said, okay. So I'm prepared for your civil war because I prepared for the EMP, right? And he just looked at me. He said, okay, what else? And I started going through all of the minor cataclysms that could take place because of the overarching one. And he went, I get you now. Now I understand why you pick something so major and far-fetched, because it funnels
All the smaller things
your
into it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Not that that is the most likely scenario, but it contains many different scenarios inside of it. And being able to explain to your kids that way, let them explain what they think. Give them the opportunity to ask questions of you of why you prep. Ask questions of why, we put certain things back and not other things. And, get them to kind of engage and come at it from a very practical standpoint with your kids and not a fear base. Because like I said, once they move out, that fear is going to kind of subside. But
if they can analyze and say, this allows me to prepare for the most widespread amount of different issues. This allows me to prepare for the hurricane, for the earthquake, and for civil unrest. Oh, okay, I'm good.
And it gets them to understand in a practical sense why we prep, what we prep for, and that they can carry it on and it not have to be such a learning curve like we had. Or not you, because you grew up in this kind of lifestyle. But there was still a learning
curve.
curve.
At the same point in time, my dad's a Vietnam vet. He was a medic. And not primarily out in the field. He was a conscientious objector. I didn't have guns in the house except for going over and shooting at a friend's house. My dad bought a gun on September 12, 2001. I was behind the curve as a teenager learning the guns now.
And so mine's the opposite. I grew up at a hunting.
I picked it up quick.
My dad was in the Army as well, but my dad was on the Army rifle team, and shooting sports were such a huge part, and along with hunting and just going out and target practicing as well, just getting really good at shooting. I've had a gun in my hand since I was little, and so, but we were raised around it, and so that part to me wasn't such a learning curve. And so it's different what you're trained up in as a child, and training your children to go in the way that you think they should is more than just go, this is what you're going to do whether you like it or not, but showing them practical applications and giving them that head start. Because I don't know when everybody can kind of tell me in the comment section, when did you get into prepping, and was it a big learning curve for you, or was this kind of a lifestyle as you were growing up and that you just kind of expanded upon? And like I said, for me, some of the things I grew up with, like the canning and the more the hunting and that aspects, something I grew up with. And you grew up with the stockpiling and things like, and so it's different learning curves for different people. But incorporating all of those things for our kids, where they learn how to can and they learn how to process meat and go out and hunt for their food and to fish and to use guns and all the different aspects of training up a child. Now that they're getting older, they can take that knowledge along with them, because what's one of our favorite sayings? Knowledge weighs nothing. And they get to take that along with them, that practical knowledge, where that learning curve isn't going to be nearly as steep for them.
And they can walk all the way away from prepping, but if you've instilled the skills and the knowledge, they can fall back on it.
And the thinking, and they can analyze what's going on in the world. But all right, guys, this is kind of a long video. We're sorry, we kind of rambled, but this is a passionate subject for us when we talk about raising up our kids. And I hope that it is for you as well. So don't forget to do the like, share, subscribe thing down. And don't forget, we only have 1 week left in our giveaway. And so we're going to try to leave I don't know which side it goes on, but
I think it goes here.
It goes
It'll
over
end
there.
up right here.
Click on it, watch the video, and find out how you can get in on that giveaway by the end of the month.
Yes.
This is July, so by the end of the month, make sure you get in on that giveaway of that black and white fire starter. So, but we're gonna get out of here and hopefully talk to y'all later.
Have a good one.